The vast chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the voices of 12 different species, each representing worlds that had bowed to their authority for over 3,000 years. Floating platforms held delegates whose forms ranged from the crystalline beings of Nexer to the gas-dwelling entities from the Outer Rim worlds. At the center of it all sat Supermarch Valdris, his towering frame and 4 arms marking him as one of the Cathari, the species that had dominated galactic politics since the Great Expansion. Today's emergency session had been called for one reason: humanity. The holographic display showed a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star in what the locals called the Milky Way's outer spiral arm. For centuries, this world had been noted in council records as a Class C primitive civilization, barely worthy of observation. The inhabitants had only recently discovered fire in galactic terms, and their technology was laughably basic. But something had changed. "They have violated the sacred boundaries," announced Delegate Thross, his insectoid mandibles clicking with each word. 3 of their vessels have been detected beyond their star system. One has established what appears to be a permanent settlement on a world they call New Hope. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. The sacred boundaries were clear. Primitive species were confined to their home systems until they achieved proper galactic consciousness and submitted to council authority. No exceptions had ever been made. Valdris raised one of his massive hands for silence. "Show us these vessels." The display shifted to show grainy images of human ships. They were crude things, barely holding together with what appeared to be metal and chemical propulsion. The delegates laughed at the primitive design, but Valdris did not join them. He had not reached his position by underestimating potential threats. "How many of them have left their world?" he asked. "Approximately 12,000 have settled on the world they call New Hope," Thross replied. "Another 8,000 are aboard what they call generation ships, traveling to other nearby systems. Their expansion appears to be accelerating." The laughter died away. 12,000 might seem insignificant to species that numbered in the billions, but it represented something dangerous: ambition. Primitive species were supposed to remain primitive until the Council decided otherwise. "They must be stopped," declared Councillor Vega, her tentacles writhing with agitation. "Every species that ever challenged the sacred boundaries has been eliminated." "We cannot make exceptions," Valdris nodded slowly. "Contact their leaders, issue the standard ultimatum. They have 30 of their days to withdraw all vessels and personnel to their home system. If they refuse, we will demonstrate why the sacred boundaries exist." Ambassador David Reynolds had been serving as Earth's first interstellar diplomat for exactly 6 months when the message arrived. He had been chosen for the role not because anyone expected to need a galactic diplomat, but because someone had to fill the position that the new colonial authority had created. His small office aboard the orbital station above New Hope contained little more than a desk, a communications array, and a growing collection of reports about humanity's expansion into space. The message came through on frequencies that human technology could barely detect, translated by computers that strained to understand alien concepts. When David finished reading it, he read it again. Then a third time. The ultimatum was simple: humanity would cease all expansion beyond Earth immediately. All colonies would be abandoned. All spacefaring vessels would return to Earth's solar system. Any humans found beyond the designated boundaries, after the 30-day deadline, would be destroyed along with their vessels. The message was signed by something calling itself the Galactic Council and carried the authority of 12 species that humanity had never heard of. David's first instinct was to laugh. It sounded like science fiction, like something from the entertainment programs his daughter watched. But the message had come from space, transmitted on frequencies that suggested technology far beyond human capability. And the detailed star charts included in the message showed knowledge of human settlements that could only have come from direct observation. He sent the message to Earth. Immediately, President Maria Santos received the transmission in the middle of the night, Washington time. She read it 3 times in her private study, then called an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council. Within 6 hours, Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the crisis chamber beneath the United Nations building. Ladies and gentlemen, President Santos began, we are no longer alone in the universe. The debate that followed was unlike anything in human history. Some argued for immediate compliance, pointing out that humanity had no way to fight enemies with such advanced technology. Others insisted that the ultimatum was a hoax or a test. A few suggested that humanity should respond with defiance, regardless of the consequences. General Harrison, commander of the Colonial Defense Force, was among those urging caution. We have 80 ships in space, Madam President. 80. If these aliens have the technology to track our settlements from across the galaxy, they have the technology to destroy us all. President Santos listened to every voice, but her decision had been made the moment she read the ultimatum. Humanity has spent 50,000 years expanding across our world, she said. We have crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and reached for the stars because it is our nature to explore and grow. We will not abandon that nature because someone we have never met demands it. The vote was close. 54 nations voted to reject the ultimatum, 43 voted to comply, and 12 abstained. It was enough. David Reynolds transmitted humanity's response 26 days after receiving the ultimatum. The message was brief. Humanity respectfully declines to abandon its colonies. We seek peaceful coexistence with all species, but we will not surrender our right to explore and settle among the stars. If you wish to discuss this matter further, we welcome diplomatic contact. The response from the Galactic Council came within hours. Your defiance has been noted. Prepare for the consequences of your arrogance. Across human space, settlers on New Hope looked up at unfamiliar stars and wondered what those consequences might be. On Earth, President Santos addressed the world. From the steps of the United Nations building, today humanity faces its greatest challenge, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the globe. We have been told to abandon our dreams, to accept limits placed on us by others, to bow to the will of those who believe themselves our superiors. Our answer is simple. We will not bow. We will not surrender our future to fear. Whatever comes. Next, we will face it as we have faced every challenge in human history, together, as one species united in our determination to be free. The die had been cast. Across the galaxy, 12 alien fleets began their journey toward human space, confident that they would make quick work of the upstart species that dared to challenge their authority. They had no idea what they were about to unleash. Mining Station Alpha 7 drifted in the asteroid belt between New Hope and its primary moon. Its crew of 200 working around the clock to extract rare metals for the growing colonial fleet. The station was nothing impressive by galactic standards, a collection of habitat modules and processing facilities connected by pressurized tunnels, powered by a small fusion reactor that the crew had nicknamed Old Reliable. Chief Engineer Lisa Wong was reviewing the morning production reports when the proximity alarms began screaming. Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, called out sensor operator Tom Bradley from the command center. Multiple contacts. Range 4 million kilometers and closing fast. Lisa dropped her coffee and raced to the command center, where she found Tom staring at his displays with a mixture of confusion and growing terror. The sensor screen showed 12 massive objects approaching from deep space, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Are you sure these readings are correct? Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. I've run diagnostics 3 times, Tom replied. Those ships are each over 2 kilometers long. The largest human ship ever built is barely 300 meters. Lisa activated the emergency beacon that would alert all human vessels in the system, then opened a channel to the approaching fleet. Unknown vessels, this is Mining Station Alpha 7. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The response came in perfect English, though the voice that delivered it was clearly non-human. Primitive facility, you will surrender immediately. Resistance will result in your destruction. You have been warned. Lisa looked around the command center at her small crew. These were miners and engineers, not soldiers. They had no weapons beyond the mining charges used to break up asteroids. But as she watched her people's faces, she saw something that surprised her: determination. "All vessels," she broadcast on the emergency channel, "this is Alpha 7. We are under attack by unknown alien forces. We will not surrender. Repeat, we will not surrender." The alien fleet reached weapons range 6 hours later. Admiral Torres had been playing poker in his quarters, aboard the battleship Liberty, when the emergency signal reached the human fleet. Within minutes, every human vessel in the system was accelerating toward Alpha 7 at maximum burn, but Torres knew they would arrive too late. The alien ships were too fast, too advanced. The Liberty was humanity's most advanced warship, built in the orbital shipyards above Earth and equipped with the best technology the species could produce. It carried a crew of 300 and mounted weapons that could crack an asteroid in half. Against the approaching alien fleet, it was little more than a toy. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Ann Parker, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Torres studied the tactical display showing the relative positions of the human and alien fleets. 12 alien ships against 5 human vessels. The math was simple and brutal. "Open a channel to all ships," Torres ordered. "This is Admiral Torres to all vessels. Today we face an enemy that believes humanity will bow to superior force. They are about to learn otherwise. All ships, attack formation Delta, we're going in." The first exchange of fire occurred at a range of 800,000 kilometers. The alien ships launched volleys of energy weapons that struck with surgical precision, crippling the human destroyer Phoenix within seconds. The human response was immediate and chaotic. Nuclear missiles, kinetic projectiles, and mining charges converted to improvised bombs streaked toward the alien fleet. The aliens had fought hundreds of battles against dozens of species. They had perfected the art of space combat over millennia, developing strategies and formations that had never failed. Their ships moved in precise formations, their fire was coordinated and efficient, and their tactics were flawless. They were not prepared for human unpredictability. Captain Wright commanded the frigate Defiance when the alien flagship began targeting the Liberty. Without orders, without permission, and without hesitation, he turned his ship directly toward the alien vessel and activated every thruster the Defiance possessed. "All hands, this is the captain," Wright announced over the ship's intercom. "We're going to ram that alien monster. It has been an honor serving with you all." The crew of the Defiance had 30 seconds to object, to demand that their captain reconsider, to plead for their lives. Instead, they strapped themselves into their stations and prepared to die. The Defiance struck the alien flagship at 17% of light speed. The explosion was visible from New Hope's surface. When the light faded, both ships were gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of superheated debris. The alien fleet, which had never lost a flagship in 3,000 years of warfare, found itself leaderless and confused. The human fleet pressed their attack on Alpha 7. Lisa Wong watched the battle through the station's telescopes while her crew prepared for the worst. The mining station had become the focal point of humanity's first interstellar war, and she was determined that it would not fall easily. "They're coming back around for another pass," Tom reported. 3 alien ships breaking off from the main engagement. Lisa activated the station's mining charges, turning every piece of explosive equipment into a makeshift weapon. "All crews to emergency stations. If they want this facility, they're going to have to take it over our bodies." The alien ships approached Alpha 7 with confidence. The station's defenses consisted of mining equipment and industrial tools. Its crew were civilians with no military training. By every standard of galactic warfare, the station should have surrendered hours ago. Instead, the miners of Alpha 7 turned their home into a fortress. They used magnetic grapples to hurl asteroids at the approaching ships. They detonated mining charges in carefully timed sequences that created defensive fields of debris. They turned welding torches into weapons and construction mechs into improvised fighters. The aliens had technology that humanity could barely comprehend. But they had never faced opponents who turned every tool into a weapon and every setback into motivation. When the first alien boarding party breached the station's hull, they found themselves fighting through corridors filled with improvised traps and desperate humans who refused to retreat. Every room became a battlefield, every junction a fortress. Lisa Wong died defending the command center, a mining torch in one hand and a metal pipe in the other. Tom Bradley died at his sensor station, transmitting tactical data to the human fleet until the very end. One by one, the crew of Alpha 7 fell, but they made the aliens pay for every meter of corridor, every room, every life. When the battle ended 6 hours later, 3 alien ships had been destroyed and 4 others damaged. The human fleet had lost 3 vessels and most of their ammunition, but they had achieved something unprecedented. They had hurt the aliens. Admiral Torres surveyed the aftermath from the Liberty's bridge. The alien fleet was retreating, but they would be back with reinforcements. Humanity had won its first battle, but the war was just beginning. "Admiral," and Parker called from her station, "we're receiving transmissions from across human space. Every colony, every settlement, every ship is asking the same question. What do we do now?" Torres looked at the debris field where Alpha 7 had stood, where 200 miners had chosen to die rather than surrender. "We do what humans have always done," he said. "We adapt. We learn, and we make sure that the galaxy remembers what happens when someone threatens our people." In the wreckage of the alien flagship, emergency beacons transmitted the battle's outcome to the Galactic Council. The message was simple but unprecedented. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had fought back, and they had won. Supermarch Valdris received the report in his private chambers. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. The humans were supposed to be primitives. They were supposed to surrender when faced with superior technology. They were supposed to be like every other species the Council had encountered. They were not. The refugee camp outside New Geneva stretched for kilometers across the scarred landscape of Kepler 438b, humanity's second colonial world. 3 months earlier, it had been home to 50,000 colonists building a new life among alien stars. Now it was ash and ruins, another casualty of the Galactic Council's escalating campaign against human expansion. Dr. Emma Foster knelt beside a piece of twisted metal that had once been part of an alien fighter craft, her portable scanner humming as it analyzed the strange materials. Around her, the sounds of reconstruction filled the air, hammers striking metal, generators powering temporary shelters, and the voices of people refusing to give up hope despite losing everything. "The molecular structure is completely different from anything in our periodic table," she reported to her research team via radio. "It's like they're using elements that shouldn't exist, arranged in patterns that violate everything we know about material science." Emma had been a theoretical physicist before the war, working on problems that seemed important in peacetime: energy efficiency, faster computation, the basic building blocks of matter. Now she was part of humanity's most critical project: reverse engineering. Alien technology fast enough to keep the species alive. The attack on Kepler 438b had been different from the previous battles. The aliens had not simply destroyed the colony. They had systematically targeted civilian areas, schools, hospitals, and residential districts. The message was clear: surrender or watch your people die. They had badly misjudged human psychology. "Dr. Foster," called Lieutenant Ray Murphy, one of the Colonial Defense Force officers assigned to protect the research team, "we've got another piece of wreckage. Looks like it might be from their propulsion system." Emma looked up from her work to see Murphy dragging a chunk of crystalline material that pulsed with faint energy. Her scanner immediately began detecting readings unlike anything she had ever seen: exotic particles, impossible energy densities, and what appeared to be localized distortions in space-time itself. "My God," she whispered. "They're not just using advanced technology. They're using physics we haven't discovered yet." 6,000 kilometers away, General Harrison stood in the command bunker that had been carved into the mountains of Kepler 438b's northern continent. The walls were lined with tactical displays showing the locations of human forces across 12 star systems, each one a small cluster of lights surrounded by the vast darkness of hostile space. "Sir," reported Colonel Adams, his chief of staff, "the latest intelligence reports from our scout ships. The alien fleets are massing for another major offensive. It looks like they're targeting the Earth system this time." Harrison studied the tactical projections with the grim focus of a man who had learned war the hardest way possible. 3 months of fighting had taught humanity painful lessons about their enemies. The aliens were technologically superior, numerically superior, and completely ruthless when facing resistance, but they had also revealed weaknesses. "Their formations are too rigid," Harrison mused, pointing at the enemy fleet arrangements. "Look at this. Same deployment pattern they used at Alpha 7. Same pattern they used here. They're fighting by some kind of manual following rules that worked for thousands of years." Adams nodded. "Our unpredictability confuses them. Every time we do something they don't expect, their response time increases." "Then we keep being unpredictable," Harrison decided. "Send orders to all fleet commanders. No standard tactics. No predictable formations. I want every engagement to be something they've never seen before." The general strategy was born of desperation, but it was working. Human forces were learning to fight a guerrilla war in space using hit-and-run tactics that targeted alien supply lines and isolated vessels. They couldn't match alien technology, but they could make every victory expensive on Earth. President Santos addressed the Global Assembly in an emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from every nation, their faces showing the strain of leading a species at war with forces beyond their comprehension. "The enemy believes that targeting our civilians will break our resolve," Santos announced, her voice carrying across the assembly hall and to billions of viewers around the world. "They are wrong. Every attack on our people, every destroyed colony, every murdered child only strengthens our determination to resist." The response from the assembly was immediate and unanimous, thunderous applause that went on for several minutes. These were leaders who had spent their careers managing budgets and trade agreements. Now they were voting on matters of species survival, and they were united in a way that peacetime had never achieved. "I am announcing the immediate implementation of the Total War Protocol," Santos continued. "Every resource of every nation will be dedicated to our defense. Every factory will be converted to military production. Every scientist will work on weapons research. Every citizen will contribute to our survival." The transformation of human society was unprecedented in its speed and scale. Within weeks, automobile factories were producing spacecraft components. University laboratories became weapons research facilities. Children learned mathematics using ballistic calculations and physics through the study of captured alien technology. Dr. Foster's breakthrough came during her 4th month of studying alien materials. Working in a laboratory carved from the ruins of New Geneva, she discovered that alien technology relied on manipulating fundamental forces in ways that human science had never imagined. "It's not just advanced materials," she explained to the team of engineers gathered around her makeshift workstation. "They're using controlled gravitational fields as structural elements. The entire ship is held together by engineered space-time distortions." The implications were staggering. If humanity could understand and replicate this technology, they could build ships that were faster, stronger, and more maneuverable than anything in their current fleet. "How long until we can build our own version?" asked Chief Engineer Roberts, who had volunteered to work on the project after losing his family in the attack. On Kepler-438b. Emma looked at the alien wreckage scattered around her laboratory, then at the determined faces of her colleagues. "Give me 6 months," she said. 6 months, and I'll give you ships that can match anything the aliens have." The first test of human-alien hybrid technology took place in the asteroid belt of the Sol system, far from Earth and any populated areas. The prototype vessel, designated Phoenix 2 in honor of the destroyer lost at Alpha 7, incorporated alien propulsion systems with human weapons and armor. Admiral, Torres watched from the Liberty as the Phoenix II engaged its hybrid drive system. The small ship accelerated at rates that should have crushed its crew, but the alien gravity manipulation technology kept the interior at normal Earth gravity. Incredible, breathed Navigator Williams. She's reaching .2 light speed and still accelerating. The Phoenix II ran through a series of combat maneuvers that would have been impossible for traditional human vessels. Instantaneous direction changes, acceleration profiles that ignored inertia, and energy weapon discharges that drew power directly from manipulated space-time. All stations, Torres announced, prepare for combat trials. Let's see what happens when human tactics meet alien technology. The results exceeded every expectation. The Phoenix II was not just competitive with alien vessels. In many ways, it was superior. Human creativity had found ways to use alien technology that its original designers had never considered. Word of the breakthrough spread through human space within days. In shipyards across 12 systems, work began on a new generation of vessels that combined the best of both species' capabilities. The war that had begun with humanity fighting a desperate defensive action was about to change dramatically. Supre March. Valdres received the intelligence reports about human technological advancement in his private chambers aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion. The reports were detailed and disturbing. Human ships were now matching alien performance. Human tactics were becoming increasingly sophisticated, and human resolve showed no signs of breaking despite months of pressure. "This is unprecedented," he admitted to his senior staff. "In 3,000 years of galactic expansion, no primitive species has ever adapted this quickly." His military advisor, General Krax, shifted nervously. "Should we consider increasing the pace of our attacks? Perhaps a direct assault on their homeworld would end this quickly." Valdres considered the suggestion, then dismissed it. "No, that would only make them more desperate, and desperate humans have proven to be extremely dangerous. We will continue with systematic pressure on their colonies." It was a decision he would come to regret. In the ruins of New Geneva, Dr. Foster received a priority message from Earth. Her research had been approved for immediate mass production. Within 6 months, humanity would field a fleet equipped with hybrid technology. She looked up at the alien stars visible through the gaping hole in her laboratory's roof, stars that had once seemed beautiful and welcoming. Now they represented the territory of an enemy that had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn, adapt, and transform challenge into opportunity. The galaxy had declared war on Earth, believing they were attacking a primitive species. They were about to discover that they had awakened something far more dangerous: human potential, unlimited by the constraints of their own narrow thinking. The war was far from over, but for the first time since it began, humanity was not just surviving. They were preparing to fight back. The war had been raging for 14 months when Captain Anderson led Strike Force Prometheus through the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system, humanity's newest and most aggressive military formation. Unlike the desperate defensive fleets that had fought at Alpha 7 and New Geneva, these ships represented something entirely new: human vessels built with fully integrated alien technology, crewed by battle-hardened veterans who had learned their trade fighting superior enemies. The Prometheus herself was a masterpiece of hybrid engineering, sleek human lines reinforced with alien materials, weapon systems that drew power from manipulated spacetime, and propulsion that could outmaneuver anything the Galactic Council had ever produced. More importantly, she carried something that no alien ship possessed: the unpredictable creativity of human tactical thinking. "Target acquired," reported Lieutenant Shaw from the sensor station. "Alien research facility, bearing 047 Mark 12. Detecting significant energy signatures and what appears to be a large data storage complex." Anderson studied the tactical display with satisfaction. For months, human intelligence had been tracking alien supply lines and communication patterns, searching for high-value targets that could provide crucial information about enemy capabilities. The research station orbiting the gas giant Kepler 442c was exactly what they had been looking for. Remember the mission parameters, Anderson addressed his crew over the ship's intercom. We need that facility intact and its data core functional. This is not a destruction mission. This is theft on an interstellar scale. The attack began at dawn, local time, though dawn had no meaning in the depths of space. 12 human ships materialized out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation around the alien station, their hybrid drives allowing for precision exits that alien technology could not match. The station's defenders responded immediately, but they were facing tactics they had never encountered. Instead of the traditional alien approach of systematic, overwhelming force, the humans attacked from multiple directions simultaneously, using unpredictable movement patterns and coordinated strikes that confused the automated defense systems. Within 6 hours, the research facility was in human hands. What Anderson's team found in the station's data cores changed everything. The facility contained detailed maps of every Galactic Council homeworld, complete with defensive positions, fleet deployments, and strategic resources. More shocking were the historical records showing the Council's expansion across the galaxy. Thousands of species conquered or exterminated, entire civilizations reduced to footnotes in alien bureaucratic records. "My God," whispered data analyst Parker as she reviewed the captured files. "They've been doing this for millennia." Species after species, all of them following the same pattern, expansion beyond their home system. Ultimatum from the Council. Resistance, and then complete destruction. Anderson reviewed the star charts showing the locations of 12 alien homeworlds, each one protected by massive fleets and defensive installations. For 3,000 years, these worlds had been untouchable. The secure bases from which the Galactic Council had dominated the galaxy, that was about to change. The data from Kepler 442c reached Earth within days, transmitted via the new quantum communication network that Dr. Foster's team had developed from captured alien technology. President Santos called an emergency meeting of the Global Security Council, but this time the discussion was not about defense. "Ladies and gentlemen," Santos announced, "we are going on the offensive." The plan that emerged from those meetings was audacious beyond anything humanity had previously attempted. Operation Prometheus would not target alien military forces or colonial outposts. Instead, human fleets would strike directly at the heart of Galactic Council power, their homeworlds. General Harrison coordinated the massive military buildup from his new headquarters in the lunar orbital facilities above Earth. The past year of war had transformed human manufacturing capabilities beyond recognition. Shipyards that had once produced a few vessels per year now launched new ships weekly, each one incorporating lessons learned from previous battles. The psychological impact will be as important as the military effect, Harrison explained to his staff officers. For 3,000 years, no enemy has ever threatened a Council homeworld. When our ships appear in their systems, we will be attacking their fundamental assumption of invulnerability. Admiral Torres, now commanding the expanded human fleet, studied the operational plans with the careful attention of someone who understood that humanity's survival depended on perfect execution. The alien homeworlds were heavily defended, but they were also predictable in their defensive arrangements. "They've been following the same security protocols for centuries," Torres observed. "Fixed orbital platforms, standardized patrol routes, response patterns based on threat assessments that never include direct attacks on homeworlds. We can use their own assumptions against them." The first human fleet to appear in an alien home system materialized above Nexer Prime, the crystalline homeworld of the species that had provided the Galactic Council with their advanced sensor technology. The defenders responded with textbook precision, deploying their forces according to defensive plans that had never been tested in actual combat. They were not prepared for human innovation. Commander Foster, Dr. Emma Foster's younger brother who had joined the Colonial Defense Force, after the destruction of New Geneva, led the assault on Nexer Prime's orbital installations. Instead of approaching the heavily defended facilities directly, his ships used the planet's own gravity well against the defenders, slingshotting around the world at velocities that strained even hybrid propulsion systems. The attack pattern was impossible by alien standards. No species had ever been crazy enough to use a planet's gravity as a weapon. The human ships emerged from their gravity-assisted acceleration directly behind the orbital platforms, in the blind spots that alien designers had never considered vulnerable. Within hours, Nexer Prime's defenses were crippled and human ships were broadcasting surrender demands to the planetary government. The psychological impact was exactly what Harrison had predicted. News of the attack spread through Galactic Council space faster than the military response could be organized. Species that had never questioned Council protection suddenly faced the reality that their homeworlds were vulnerable. Captain Wright's daughter, Lieutenant Susan Wright, commanded the strike force that appeared above the Cathari homeworld 3 days later. She carried a special authorization from President Santos. If the Cathari government was willing to negotiate, humanity was prepared to discuss terms. If not, the bombardment would begin immediately. Supermarch Valdris received the human ultimatum. Aboard his flagship, which happened to be orbiting his own homeworld when the attack began. For the first time in his career, he was facing an enemy fleet in his own system, looking down at the world where he had been born. "Impossible," he whispered, staring at the tactical displays showing human ships in formations around Kether. "This cannot be happening." But it was happening, and more attacks were reported every hour. Human fleets were appearing across Council space, striking at targets that had been considered absolutely secure. The hunters had become the hunted, and panic was spreading through alien space like wildfire. The breakthrough in faster-than-light travel that made Operation Prometheus possible had come from Dr. Foster's continued research into alien technology. By combining human engineering principles with alien space-time manipulation, her team had developed drive systems that could cross galactic distances in days rather than months. The key was understanding that they think of space travel as moving through space, she explained to President Santos during a secure communication from her laboratory. "We've learned to think of it as folding space around us. Our ships don't travel faster than light. They convince the universe that the distance between 2 points is much shorter than it appears." The strategic implications were staggering. Human fleets could now strike anywhere in the galaxy with minimal warning, while alien forces still relied on traditional faster-than-light travel that required weeks to cross the same distances. Within 1 month of the first attacks, 7 of the 12 Council homeworlds had been directly threatened by human forces. 3 alien governments had already opened secret negotiations for separate peace agreements, while others were recalling their fleets from human space to defend their own worlds. The Galactic Council that had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia was collapsing under pressure from a species they had dismissed as primitive. Just 1 year earlier, Valdris called an emergency session of the remaining council members, but only 5 species responded. The others were too busy defending their homeworlds or negotiating their own survival to attend galactic politics. "How did this happen?" demanded Councillor Vega, her tentacles writhing with barely controlled panic. "They were supposed to be destroyed months ago." Valdris had been asking himself the same question since the first reports of human attacks on Council worlds. The answer was becoming clear, though he was reluctant to admit it. They had fundamentally misunderstood their enemy. "They do not think like us," he finally admitted. "They do not follow our rules of warfare. They do not respect our assumptions about galactic order. They are—" He paused, searching for the right words. "They are something we have never encountered before." The realization came too late for the Galactic Council, but it was the first step toward understanding what they had truly awakened when they declared war on Earth. In human space, President Santos addressed the species via broadcast from the rebuilt colonial capital on New Hope. Behind her, the flags of every human nation flew alongside the banner of the new colonial federation, symbols of a unity that had been forged in the fires of interstellar war. 1 year ago, we were told to surrender our dreams and accept limits placed on us by others, she announced. Today, we are dictating terms to those who believe themselves our masters. This is not the end of our struggle, but it is the beginning of a new chapter in human history. The galaxy will never again mistake our desire for peace as a sign of weakness. The war was not over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had not just survived the Galactic Council's attack. They had turned the tables so completely that their former enemies were now fighting for their own survival. The species that had once been confined to a single star system now controlled the strategic initiative across the entire galaxy, and they were just getting started. The neutral space station designated Haven 7 drifted in the empty void between star systems. A hastily constructed facility that represented something unprecedented in galactic history, a meeting place where former enemies could attempt to negotiate peace. The station's simple design reflected its urgent purpose. Built from salvaged materials and powered by generators that both human and alien engineers could understand, President Maria Santos arrived aboard the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, accompanied by Admiral Torres and Dr. Foster, whose technological breakthroughs had made human victory possible. Across the docking bay, Supermarch Valdris disembarked from a Cathari cruiser that showed obvious battle damage, flanked by the few remaining Council members who still supported continued resistance. The sight of alien leaders arriving under human protection would have been unthinkable 2 years earlier. Now it was simply another sign of how completely the balance of galactic power had shifted. The negotiations began in Haven 7's largest conference room, a circular chamber designed to accommodate the various physiological needs of different species. Santos sat across from Valdris, studying the alien leader who had once commanded fleets capable of destroying worlds. Now he looked like what he had become, the representative of a defeated alliance desperately seeking terms that would allow his people to survive. Supermarch Valdris, Santos began, 18 months ago, you issued an ultimatum demanding that humanity abandon its colonies and retreat to Earth. Today, your fleets are in ruins, your homeworlds are under blockade, and half of your alliance has already negotiated separate peace agreements with us. What terms do you propose? Valdris struggled with the reality of his position. The Cathari Empire had dominated galactic politics for millennia, and he had never imagined sitting across a negotiating table from representatives of a species he had dismissed as primitives. The humans had not just defeated the Galactic Council militarily. They had shattered every assumption about galactic order. We seek an end to hostilities, Valdris replied, his translated words carrying undertones of exhaustion that needed no interpretation. The Galactic Council is prepared to recognize human sovereignty over your current territorial holdings in exchange for cessation of attacks on our remaining worlds. Santos exchanged glances with Admiral Torres before responding. The human delegation had spent weeks preparing for these negotiations, but they had always known that the real discussions would involve much more than territorial boundaries. Supermarch, with respect, you are not in a position to offer us recognition of sovereignty. We have already claimed by force, Santos said. Our fleets control the space lanes between your worlds. Our technology now surpasses yours in most areas. Your alliance is dissolving as your member species seek separate accommodations with us. We are not here to negotiate the terms of our victory. We are here to discuss the future of galactic civilization. The words hit Valdris like physical blows. Everything Santos said was true, and the tactical displays aboard his ship had confirmed humanity's overwhelming strategic advantage. Human fleets could appear anywhere in the galaxy within days, while alien forces required weeks to respond to threats. The technological superiority that had once belonged to the Council had been reversed so completely that human ships now outperformed alien vessels in most categories. Dr. Foster leaned forward in her chair, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally reverse-engineered alien technology. The question we must address is not how to end this war, but how to prevent future wars. The Galactic Council's model of expansion and domination has failed. Humanity proposes something different. What humanity proposed was revolutionary, a galactic government based on equality rather than domination, cooperation rather than conquest, and mutual respect rather than fear. The concept was so alien to Council thinking that several delegates initially believed it was some kind of elaborate deception. You conquered our worlds, protested Councillor Vega, her tentacles writhing with confusion. "Why would you not simply rule them as we would have ruled yours?" Admiral Torres answered with the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to children. "Because we learned something during this war that you never understood. Diversity makes us stronger. Every species we have encountered has capabilities that we lack. Every world we have visited has resources and knowledge that benefit everyone. Domination wastes potential, cooperation multiplies it." The negotiations continued for 6 days, with representatives from dozens of species arriving as word spread that humanity was offering something unprecedented, a chance to participate in galactic governance as equals rather than subjects. Many came out of curiosity, others out of desperation, but all found themselves confronting ideas that challenged thousands of years of galactic tradition. Ambassador Kell of the Andorian Republic was among the first to embrace humanity's vision. Her people had been forced into the Galactic Council through conquest centuries earlier, and they had never forgotten what freedom felt like. What guarantees can you offer that this new federation will not simply become another form of human domination? She asked during one of the working sessions. President Santos had anticipated this question, and her answer reflected months of careful consideration by Earth's best political philosophers. The same guarantee that prevents any democracy from becoming a tyranny: institutional checks on power, representation proportional to population and contribution, and the absolute right of any member to withdraw from the Federation if they choose. The concept of voluntary membership in a galactic government was so radical that several species required extended discussions just to understand its implications. The Galactic Council had been based on forced submission. Humanity was proposing voluntary cooperation. Dr. Foster presented the technological aspects of the new federation, outlining plans for shared research initiatives, joint exploration missions, and the free exchange of scientific knowledge. "Imagine what we could accomplish if every species contributed their expertise to common goals," she explained. "The Nexari understanding of crystalline matrices, combined with human creativity and Cathari engineering precision, could revolutionize energy production. Andorian biological sciences merged with our medical knowledge could eliminate disease across the galaxy." The vision she painted was compelling enough that even former enemies began to see the potential benefits of cooperation over conflict. Valdris found himself in an impossible position. Military defeat he could have accepted. Warrior cultures understood victory and defeat, but the humans were offering something that challenged the fundamental assumptions of Cathari civilization. The idea that strength came from domination rather than cooperation. "How can we trust a species that has proven capable of destroying us?" he asked during a private meeting with Santos. The human president considered her answer carefully. This conversation would determine whether the galaxy's future would be built on reconciliation or continued conflict. "Supermarch, you began this war because you believed humanity would be easy to conquer," she said. "You learned that we are capable of defending ourselves and our interests. But you have also seen that we could have destroyed your homeworlds and chose not to. We could have eliminated your fleets and chose to offer terms. We could have imposed our will by force and chose to propose cooperation. Trust is not built on weakness. It is built on the choice to use strength responsibly." The final negotiations produced a document that would reshape galactic civilization, the Charter of the Galactic Federation. Unlike the hierarchical structure of the old council, the Federation was based on principles of self-determination, mutual cooperation, and shared prosperity. 7 species signed the charter immediately, including humanity and the Andorian Republic. 4 others, including the Cathari Empire, agreed to observer status while they considered full membership. 3 species chose to withdraw to the Galactic Rim rather than participate in the new government. The ceremony marking the end of the war took place on the observation deck of Haven 7, with representatives from dozens of species watching as President Santos and Ambassador Kell signed the documents establishing Earth as the temporary capital of the Galactic Federation. Today we close the book on 3,000 years of galactic tyranny, Santos announced to the assembled delegates and the billions watching via interstellar communications. Tomorrow we begin writing a new chapter based on the radical idea that different species can work together as equals. Admiral Torres stood beside the observation windows, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels that would become the Federation's peacekeeping force. Ships that had been designed to fight each other would now patrol together, protecting trade routes and defending the rights of all member species. Dr. Foster was already planning the research initiatives that would emerge from the Federation's commitment to shared knowledge. The technological advances possible through true cooperation would dwarf anything achieved through conquest and domination. But perhaps the most significant moment came when Valdris approached Santos during the reception following the signing ceremony. "President Santos," he said, his words carefully chosen, "the Cathari Empire would like to formally request consideration for full membership in the Galactic Federation." Santos smiled, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting that had become a symbol of the Federation's inclusive philosophy. "Supermarch Valdris, we would be honored to welcome the Cathari people as full partners in building this new galaxy." As the reception continued around them, representatives from dozens of species mingled freely, sharing ideas and forming the personal relationships that would become the foundation of galactic peace. The war that had begun with humanity fighting desperately for survival had ended with the birth of a civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. 6 months later, President Santos stood in the newly constructed Federation Council chamber on Earth, addressing the first session of the democratically elected Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 47 species occupied seats arranged in a vast circle, each one equal in authority and responsibility. "The galaxy made a mistake when it declared war on Earth," she concluded her opening address. "That mistake awakened not just humanity's potential for resistance, but our potential for leadership. Today we prove that strength does not come from dominating others, but from inspiring them to achieve more than they ever thought possible." The applause that followed came from beings who had once been enemies, now united in the common cause of building a galaxy where diversity was celebrated, rather than conquered. The Galactic Federation would face challenges in the years ahead, but it was founded on a principle that had proven more powerful than any weapon: the idea that different species working together could achieve more than any one species could accomplish alone. The war was over. The real work of building a better galaxy had just begun.